So the only one not pictured here is Ruby Riot. We'll talk about her first. Now, when it comes to making an opportunity for yourself and going to the WWE, one has to always wonder, was it worth it or not? Giving up prime amounts of your years, your youth, your talent, was it all worth it? A lot of people think and assume that if you go to WWE, you're at the pinnacle. When in reality, the truth is, you're going there and you're flipping the coin, hoping that they see you as top tier talent and want to continuously push you. I'm sure most of these people here thought that they were hot shit, that WWE will love them, and that WWE will never treat them wrong. Well, let's see how badly they treated them. Now, everything I'm about to say here is not exactly 100%, but you can add your own things inside if you want, because, like, every single detail of every single person is not exactly something that someone can do on the fly. It's currently 2:30. Well, you can see at the top of your screen, there's 2:30 a.m. in the morning on the less than 24 hours these people got released. Maybe more information will come out sooner on. Maybe some of them asked for the release there, so maybe some of them didn't. I doubt Lana asked for her release. I thought she was going to be there forever because she wanted she was working really hard to actually become a wrestler, get thrown around physically and stuff like that. So let's start with Ruby Riot. Like I said, she's not pictured here. So Ruby Riot, it doesn't. I don't remember her indie name. It doesn't really matter what her indie name is, but I first saw her in the indies, and she was beating up men. She was teaming up with women. She was a badass. She had the crowd chanting for her, and that was really cool. I love that. I love that aspect about her. She went to NXT, and it was okay-ish. She didn't really have a lot of huge feuds in NXT. To my knowledge, I really don't remember any huge feuds with her. If you think about like Rhea Ripley, of course, Raquel Gonzalez. Rhea Ripley also had a feud with Io Shirai over there as well. Um, yeah. Rhea Ripley's feuds in NXT, memorable ones. Yeah, not a lot actually. She became a women's champion rather quickly. Um, so yeah, and she had the big moment in the ring, so that was really cool for her. Big huge moment for Rhea Ripley. But Ruby Riott didn't get those kind of accolades. She didn't get like a big flower send off like Sasha Banks did, or anything like that at all. I don't remember that one. She just magically showed up there on Raw with Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan, and her and her squad essentially played bullies to the locker room in the back, and that was their main role, to be bullies in the back. And eventually, Sarah Logan couldn't keep her legs closed, and she was gone from the company. And then Ruby Riott, the leader of the Riot Squad, she got injured, and she was out for like 8 months. And she came back, no fanfare, and attacked her friend. Of course, no explanation was really given. And they had feuds against one another, in which Liv Morgan beat her. That's for sure. I remember that one. Liv Morgan beat Ruby Riott over and over again. And there was, will they, won't they thing about the Riot Squad. And then they became a tag team. And when they became a tag team, they had zero amounts of storytelling. Maybe they had a thing with the Iconics, about how the Iconics didn't like the way they looked and everything like that. They were playing the Mean Girls to the Riot Squad, but that went absolutely nowhere. Yeah. So she came from the indie scene and was being cheered and praised, everything like that. That wasn't good enough for her. She wanted to go to the big time, and she did virtually nothing in NXT. And on the main roster, she had a group and it got split up. She got injured for like about a year, and then she teamed up with a partner for almost no reason and had no storylines at all. So she's been with the company, I don't know exactly how long, but it feels like for close to 5 years. Close to 5 years. So she tried. I only saw Ruby Wright, whatever her indie name was, for about a year, and she was really red hot. And I felt that when she got to the company, that she wasn't going to do a lot. They wouldn't see her as a star. If they couldn't see CM Punk's wild goth nature as anything, I don't think they're going to see anything Ruby Riott. And that turned out to be true. They have a type they like, and it's not Ruby Riott. They don't know what to do with them, especially not for that long. So, yeah, Ruby Riott, was it worth wasting all that time in your life? I honestly don't think so. Let's go with Buddy Murphy next. Buddy Murphy, he had a really cool indie name, but I forgot what it was there. But he's from Australia. That's a fact. So like, I'm sure he's going to be using that indie name again because I remember it was really cool, but I forgot what it was. But I didn't see any of his matches when he was, that particular indie name. So Buddy Murphy, he was doing nothing in NXT. He had a tag team partner, Wesley Blake. He fell for his manager in real life, Alexa Bliss. They couldn't keep their loins to each other. He secretly debuted on 205 Live, known as The Secret over there. And then he went to the main roster. He then drowned immediately in the uncreative juices that flowed out of the company and was drowned in stupidity. And he finally got relevance by fighting against Aleister Black, who we'll talk about next. They fought match after match after match. And really good matches, obviously, because those two were really good. And eventually, they had a really interesting angle with him, with Seth Rollins. He was sulking about the loss over and over again in the corner for like the entire night. And Seth saw something in him and made him his disciple. So that was the only story that he ever had coming to WWE. Rey Mysterio angle, the eye thing, the Dominic Mysterio, essentially everything was connected to Seth Rollins with Buddy Murphy. They had nothing else for this guy. So he went from where he was in the Indies to have a tag team that went virtually nowhere. Well, he got the bang Alexa Bliss. I'm sure that's a big positive right there. And he had a decent run with Seth Rollins carrying him. But without Seth Rollins, he was not going to be used. And he got the kiss, Rey Mysterio's daughter. So that's another positive right there. They just keep on giving him pussy to drool over. That's all good there. So I think for Buddy Murphy, it was worth it at least there just for that alone. But he worked. Obviously, the man works out well. He practices his promos really a lot as well, more than I do. But he gets his body in top physical condition, and I think that he'll bounce back very well in the indie scene. I know he'll go to the indie scene. He's not going to quit. He's definitely not. So I think that that Buddy Murphy. I think that Buddy Murphy did serve his time well in WWE, even though he wasn't squandering doing nothing for a majority of his career. A majority of his career, he was in either tag team or a featured player on 205 Live, and then for a majority of his career on the main roster, he was with Seth Rollins doing something. But I can see the gaps in his career So I would say that more often than not, they were using Buddy Murphy correctly on the main roster, but it's just they didn't use him often. So that was the main thing with Buddy Murphy. Let's talk about Aleister Black. Aleister Black had great feuds with Andrade in NXT. That's where he fell for his fuck toy, Zelina Vega. And so that was the main feud he had. I think he had a feud with Drew McIntyre as well over there. So like he was treated well in NXT. I can see why he wanted to go back there. On the main roster, they teamed up with Ricochet. That was cool for a little bit there, but of course because it's a tag team, it went nowhere. Um, and then he had a feud with, well, not directly after, but he had a feud with Kevin Owens over some eye thing. He had a thing where he wanted people to fight him, even though he's supposed to be a fighter. And in WWE, you don't coerce people to fight you by saying fight me. You go out there and you actually make things happen. So that was like, it felt like forever he was doing that thing for like, it felt like 8 months he was doing like pick a fight with me over and over again. Sometimes they'll have it, sometimes they won't. And like, oh, someone finally knocked on his door or whatever, and they had a fight or whatever. They did that for a long time. So majority of his career he was sitting in the dark there sulking. Ridiculous. NXT was treated well. He was a feature star over there, but on the main roster, he had almost no storylines. His main storyline, sheesh, it wasn't with Orton. It wasn't with like I think John Cena was. No, he was. I think he was on his way out back then. Who was Aleister Black's main feud? He was teaming. I think he was teaming with Kevin Owens against Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins at that time in the Empty Arena era. But yeah, it was really really weird. He had almost no notable feuds at all on the main roster. So after NXT, which is like about a year over there, and then he goes to the main roster, and for what was that, like 3 years? I think about 3 years, he did nothing. So Aleister Black, his career was completely wasted. Going to WWE, Tommy End, I believe his real name is. No, not real end, but real name, but his indie name. So I believe Tommy End will, go to AEW. I'm sure he'll go to AEW. And he'll be a big, huge star. Same name, Tommy End. The End sounds good. The End, but anyway, I'm not talking about names now. But T End. Ooh, come up with T End. Anyway, so I believe that Aleister Black, thought he was hot shit. He had great pops over there in PWG and whatnot. So I'm sure he thought he was hot shit. So that he probably thought that WWE would push him because of his size alone. No, you got a goth look like CM Punk. They're not going to push you. That's a match to the future. If you got a whole bunch of crappy body art over you, like you're a fucking coloring book, they're not gonna push you just because you have that one. Randy Orton, when he came in, he didn't have that. By the way, he didn't have that. Randy Orton's body was clean. He eventually got the tramp stamp crap on his arm, and then he filled his arm up there with a whole bunch of shit. So, body arts, coloring book, tattoo, ink, whatever you want to call it, not they don't care. They're not gonna push you. So that's a word to the wise. It's not a good look. Ruby Riott that's lesson number 2, and that's lesson number 3. Don't bother. Don't try. Keep that shit to yourself there, and stupid girls who fall for that shit. Speaking of stupid girls, Lana. Lana has been the pimple of WWE for a while. She, of course, was a manager of Rusev in NXT, manager of Rusev on the main roster, lost her accent, and then she wanted to become a wrestler. So her entire career was tied to Rusev, and then it was tied to Bobby Lashley, and now it's tied to a random tag team partner. So, more or less, Lana's career in the company has been kept busy, either by being the manager of someone or being the partner of someone. So they didn't really waste Lana. Okay, so I'll just put that out of the way right now. But her career hasn't really had any hasn't really hit any highs since Rusev left. No, since she broke away from Rusev. After she stopped being Rusev's manager and wanted to play with Dolph Ziggler for some reason, and then she wanted to play with Bobby Lashley. After that, all the Rusev thing stopped. Her stock dropped so fast. So no one really cared about being a whore with Ziggler, being a whore with Lashley, and then being a tag team whore. She hooked up with whatever Natalia. She hooked up with Naomi. I mean, like, she couldn't. She tried to do it on her own, but then she got put through tables over and over again. The same week, her husband went to AEW, and they kept putting in tables week after week after week after week, over and over again. And eventually, she got her comeuppance with by having Nia throw herself through a table, and I think Nia throwing herself out of the Royal Rumble. So I guess that counts as quote unquote revenge. So wherever she was, she spent, I believe it's close to 5 years. Close to 5 years, because she was in NXT for a while. In case you're wondering, no, they never explained why she was attracted to Rusev in NXT. They never explained it. She was scouting people the same way Alexa Bliss was, like currently, is like looking at someone, and she's not saying who she's scouting or whatever. So like it's mystery who it is, because WWE doesn't really know. So like in the time, Lana was just scouting random people there, and Rusev happened to be the connector, and that was the connection. But like what you liked about him, never really said. What, probably power, strength, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, it was always connected to Rusev. As soon as Rusev was not going to be the main focal point for Lana, then they should have thought about either letting her go or putting her to being a wrestler immediately, because having her be the arm candy of other people there didn't really work out for her, and made her look more and more like a joke, more and more attached to being a manager. And then when she becomes a wrestler, it's pathetic. So we all know Eva Marie's not going to do jack shit for the women's division, but let's move on from there. And Braun Strowman, I'm sure he thought it was worth it. Clack off. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, reverse, clack on. They had the brilliant idea of having Braun Strowman replace Roman Reigns because he was scared of the COVID virus and the practices of WWE. They had him replace Roman Reigns and fight against Goldberg and win, beat Goldberg. And then WWE's brilliant creative for Braun Strowman to be the challenger for his title is to have him be in a feud with his former boss, Bray Wyatt the Fiend. That was their brilliant strategy for Braun Strowman when he got the title. Just like it was their quote-unquote big creative spot to make Daniel Bryan's first feud be with his former tag team partner, Kane, in which they had a big connection with. Brilliant. Brilliant. Black off. This company's fucking stupid.